Thousands of years ago, the skygazers of the classical world knew about 6 planets: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Thanks to the invention of the telescope, Uranus was discovered in 1781. But discrepancies in its orbit meant that something was tugging at it. Sure enough, that something turned out to be Neptune. Ever since, scientists have wondered if there might be yet another planet in our solar system, sometimes called Planet X. Now, astronomers have strong evidence for one. A planet roughly the size of Neptune, with a mass 10 times the Earth's, and a thick atmosphere of hydrogen and helium. Just as Neptune was predicted based on its influence on Uranus, the evidence for Planet X is indirect. Astronomers observe 6 small solar system objects and notice they come closest to the Sun in a unique configuration. There's only a 1 in 15,000 chance that this orbital clustering is a coincidence. It is much more likely that Planet X has shepherded the 6 objects into their orbits. This explodes our conception of the solar system, because Planet X would loop around the Sun unimaginably far away in a strange elliptical orbit, so far away that it takes 15,000 years to make the trip. By comparison, Neptune's orbital period is 165 years. Of course, not everyone will be convinced of Planet X until we have visual proof. Researchers are now using one of the world's largest telescopes, Subaru, in Hawaii, and they say they have a reasonable chance of finding Planet X in the next 5 years. Once spotted, we can welcome Planet X as the 9th planet in our solar system.
So that's Nibiru over Tugum. at 9 o'clock last night. There's no other stars in the sky, and it's about 3 times bigger than Venus. We're going to try and get it better tonight with a more stable tripod.
Third week of November 2016. Disasters have swept the globe with a fury this year. Massive floods have happened across the United States, Europe, and the Far East. What is causing these catastrophic events? The cause can be seen right here. Our oceans are unusually warm, which results in rapid evaporation. The evaporation causes humidity, which results in record-breaking rainfall and raging floodwaters all across the world. Temperature extremes are becoming more prevalent each year. Even so, the maps that indicate these extremes are being altered to keep us uninformed and unaware of what is really happening here on Earth. Temperatures in both the Antarctic and Arctic regions are being whited out on maps and charts so that the public will not question whether a major catastrophe is gradually taking place. Some anomaly maps blot out various regions with gray, which means insufficient data, while other maps show the real dangers. The devastation continues across the globe while federal, state, and military officials are drafting contingency plans when the big one hits the fan. These plans reflect deep anxiety about a looming disaster, an economy and infrastructure that would be wiped out in the blink of an eye. Recent events show how truly vulnerable we are and whether we will ever see an effective government response to these events. Disturbing events are happening across the globe on a daily basis. Civilizations are on the verge of collapse as social unrest and the threat of human annihilation by forces both on Earth and in the heavens becomes the topic of the mainstream media. Is our planet about to change forever? Here are but a few of the many discerning developments taking place recently.
May be heading closer to a flashpoint for the first time in decades.
And News Channel 5's Rebecca Schleicher shows us why experts say the presidential election will play a key role in the recent resurgence of Cold War tensions.
The president issued an executive order today trying to get the science community prepared for solar storms that could disrupt us here on Earth.
Solar storms happen all the time. Scientists say that they're like a million nuclear bombs exploding at the same time.
One way to get at America, and an easy way, quite frankly, is through an EMP attack, an electromagnetic pulse attack.
So we've known about the capability of EMP. The first study had the commission headed by Roscoe Bartlett, Republican out of Frederick, Maryland, 2004. Testimony in that study indicated 90%, let me repeat that, 90% of all Americans will die within 12 to 18 months after an EMP event.
So what exactly is it that is causing the world to become entrenched in fear and uncertainty? Could an astronomical phenomena be responsible for the tumultuous behavior of so many people and nations across the world, and the restless and unsettling events now taking place on this planet? The answer is yes, it could be, and this may explain why. I have mentioned previously how earthquakes are becoming more frequent and more intense as time passes. In 1939, a very knowledgeable prognosticator named Carlos Muñoz Ferrara, who was also a professional astronomer, engineer, and physicist, predicted with extraordinary precision a devastating earthquake that the mainstream science had asserted was impossible to predict. His prediction was published in the journal El Sur from Concepcion, Chile, on Thursday, January 19th of 1939, but it was ignored. That day, he predicted that on January 24th of that year, at 7:10 p.m., an earthquake would devastate Chile. But no one believed him. Indeed, with only 4 hours apart, his prediction was fulfilled. At 11:29 p.m., for 18 seconds, Chile shook. A major earthquake destroyed 5 provinces in southern Chile, killing 40,000 people. In reality, he accurately predicted a series of quakes in May of 1960. He predicted the powerful tsunami that reached Alaska, the great earthquake of 1965 in Laguna, and the 1985 quake in Valparaiso, Chile. He was able to foretell seismic events mathematically by calculating direct correlations between astronomical phenomena and Earth events. The most significant prediction found by Muñoz Ferrara was not an earthquake, though, but the future arrival of a great comet planet, also known as Hercolubus, or Planet X. He calls it a comet planet because it is as big as a planet, presumably 6 times bigger than Jupiter, but has a tail and follows the elliptical orbit like a comet, and travels between the sun and a black sun that is 32 billion kilometers away. Hercolubus hasn't penetrated the solar system for 13,000 years. And 13,000 years ago were the times of the lost Atlantis. The comet planet has a lot of cosmic energy, does not respect the established laws of celestial mechanics, and has resonance and radioactive effects that can produce reflections and weaknesses, and could cause illnesses, epidemics, and affect human behavior. The 9th planet, or comet planet, will enter the solar system and get as close as 14 million kilometers of the distance from the Earth. It will become visible and people will be able to photograph Planet X. It will cause a catastrophic attraction of the incandescent mineral liquids of Earth's inner structure, triggering earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions. Its effects will be devastating. 2 years before his death in the year 2001, Munoz Ferrara revealed that all these geophysical and climate changes in planet Earth would intensify from the year 1999 going forward. According to Carlos Ferrara, an astronomical phenomena will occur within our present time frame. Among the characteristics of this phenomena are the following. It is a red planet which travels an elliptical orbit of a comet and has the great mass of a planet. In other words, a planet with a tail. The star is charged with cosmic energy, as to say rarefied radiation which, according to scholars, will alter human health and behavior. It will provoke incurable epidemics and irritability, bringing wars. It does not comply with the conventional established celestial physical laws. It travels between our sun and a black sun, which is found 32 trillion kilometers away. It will pass as close as 14 million kilometers from Earth. It is approximately 6 times bigger than Jupiter. Thus, its approach of 14 million kilometers from our world will create a disastrous attraction with the incandescent liquid minerals inside the Earth, precipitating tremendous internal pressures and therefore volcanoes and earthquakes. It will end up penetrating our solar system and be visible to the naked eye as well as being photographed. Its arrival will cause human and geophysical changes, bringing much change and destruction to the Earth. Indeed, this is how the planet has been seen and photographed, even though the official media has given this phenomena various false explanations. Now you can, for yourselves, see various photos and videos of 2 suns on various web pages and newspaper publications. Carlos Ferrara corroborated that which was already stated by the great humanist Samuel Weor in the late 1970s, both in relation to Hercolubus as well as that the scientists who are at the service of the large groups of economic and political power establishments would publish various false interpretations in order to try to cover up the reality of this approaching planet in order to protect the financial markets. Thus, they have posted that this observed star is Mars or some visiting star, and they have invented scenarios to justify the fall of the satellites and shuttles, as well as the terrible atypical electromagnetic and radioactive storms throughout the whole solar system. There is research now being conducted that links mass extinctions on the Earth to a suspected 9th planet, according to Daniel Whitmire, a professor of astrophysics and present faculty member at the University of Arkansas Department of Mathematical Sciences. He published findings in the January issue of Monthly Notices of the Royal Astronomical Society that the as yet undiscovered Planet X triggers comet showers linked to mass extinctions on Earth at intervals of approximately 27 million years. Whitmire and his colleague John Matisse first published research on the connection between Planet X and mass extinctions in the journal Nature in 1985 while working as astrophysicists at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. Their work was featured in a 1985 Time magazine cover story titled "Did Comets Kill the Dinosaurs?" A bold new theory about mass extinctions. At the time, there were 3 explanations proposed to explain the regular comet showers: Planet X, the existence of a sister star to the Sun, and vertical oscillations of the Sun at its orbits, the galaxy. The last 2 ideas have subsequently been ruled out as inconsistent with the paleontology record. Only Planet X remained as a viable theory, and it is now gaining renewed attention. Whitmire and Matisse's theory is that as Planet X orbits the Sun, its tilted orbit slowly rotates, and Planet X passes through the Kuiper belt of comets every 27 million years, knocking comets into the inner solar system. The dislodged comets not only smash into the Earth, they also disintegrate in the inner solar system as they get nearer to the Sun, reducing the amount of sunlight that reaches the Earth. And so the saga of Planet X Nibiru continues today, despite the relentless efforts of shills and debunkers to shuffle it under the rug or lay it to bed once and for all. But as we already know all too well, this story does not die and does not go away, because what is unreal for some is very real for others, and reality is in the eyes of the beholder. Here now is this week's Planet X update. The evidence is mounting, and soon all things will be revealed. Check out these amazing captures by observers just like you. I have to say with some concern that what we are seeing in these images from Bloomberg TV on November 15th is incredible. 2 suns clear as day captured by their cameras. Either we are being manipulated by the media and various disinformation agencies, or what is now being revealed is very real and should have each of us on pins and needles, trying to decipher the information that is coming in faster than it can be analyzed. Listen to the individual at the end of this video who is watching this program as he shouts out in astonishment, "Look, 2 suns."
British American already owns 42% of Rebels. Home Depot posted third quarter earnings that beat estimates, the largest home improvement chain signaling confidence that Americans will keep spending on renovation projects. The company raised its profit forecast for the year. Home Depot's same-store sales were up a better than expected 5.5%. Jaguar is working on its first electric car. The Jaguar I-Pace is set for production in 2018.
The red planet Nibiru and its iron oxide dust tail suddenly appears on the Mastria Observatory webcam in Brazil just this morning, November 17, 2016. Notice the very distinct V-shaped outline of the debris tail. This is a first-time anomaly from this particular webcam observation center. The following images were originally posted by one of our Facebook followers who recently observed the formation of the system while traveling on a flight from Los Angeles to San Francisco. He mentioned that several passengers saw the formation and were astonished. He mentioned that the flight attendant had thought that it was possibly a sundog capture But as you can see from these images, this is no sundog anomaly or an ordinary lens flare. Coincidentally, these images posted on our Facebook page have gone viral across the social media sites in the last few days. A Skywatch observer from Iowa captured these still images on November 16th, showing a planetoid or brown dwarf visible to the upper left of the sun prior to sunset. This may be the same object that is now said to be following the path of Venus across the western sky. And this image possibly showing the same object as...
The engineer who's been identified by American media as James Damore has been fired from the internet giant.
Manifesto written by a Google engineer has put diversity and sexism back to the forefront.
This after he wrote an internal document asserting that there were biological reasons why men and women weren't equally represented.
They effectively have fired somebody for dissenting from the group consensus while using facts and logic to make his position.
Yes, the USA heralds itself as the land of the free and the home of the brave. But on certain college campuses in Silicon Valley and in other parts of the country, there's an atmosphere brewing where if you have the wrong political opinions or cultural views, there could be very harsh consequences.
What subversion is? Basically, it consists of 4 periods, time-wise. If we start from here and go this way, time, right? This is the beginning point. The first stage of subversion is the process which is called, basically, demoralization. It says for itself what it is.
And we believe that sexism, racism, homophobia, and bigotry have no place in this country.
Damore told CBS News that before he was fired, he complained to the National Labor Relations Board that Google was trying to silence him.
This is quite a interesting and kind of quick development in our culture and now in sporting.
The moment you bring a country to the point of almost total demoralization, when nothing works anymore, when you are not sure whether it is right or wrong, good and bad, but there's no division between evil and good.
We're afloat in this culture of confusion.
Identity is not necessarily reality. What a person identifies as doesn't make it a fact.
But how did we get here? How do we arrive at a place where truth is not as important as personal preferences, even when we acknowledge it exists?
Are people not happier these days, as one writer puts it, to live in worlds built out of our own facts?
What if there was a place where the unthinkable didn't happen, and life could continue for progressive Americans just as before?
Now there is. Welcome to The Bubble. The Bubble is a planned community of like-minded freethinkers, and no one else.
However, when I read the memo, look, even if you disagree with every single point he made, I felt he made his points in a logical, calm, and rational...
The next step is destabilization. Again, this word says for itself what it is. To destabilize all the relations, all the accepted institutions and organizations in a country.
But what makes this summer program unique is the campers it serves. Transgender children, some as young as 4 years old. It's a place where they can use the pronoun of their choice.
But these few people, who I think have lost their true identity, are breaking up the truth for the rest of us. It's a very big threat to our culture.
My question for you is this: has that agreement actually come in our day? Are you agreeing with everybody? Do you see the world agreeing with everybody? Hardly speaking. What it's led to are a couple of things that I want to point out to you. This post-truth mindset that elevates preferences over truth has led to a couple of things. It has not led to autonomy and liberation. It's led to chaos. The first thing it's led to is a sense of anger and vilification.
10, 15, 20 years ago, we would be angry, say, why so much hatred? Today we are not. We say, well, commonplace.
It's what I call the Hitlerization of social commentary. If you don't agree with me, you're Hitler. That's happened now, hasn't it? And I don't mean if you disagree with me, I mean if you don't agree with me, even if a lack of assent.
Particularly at a company like Google, which basically controls our information flow. For these guys to start basically saying this is acceptable, this is not acceptable, is really quite dangerous.
I love that line about because he was walking around as a man, no one even noticed he was pregnant. They just thought he had a beer belly.
The beer belly, that's right. And sharing it on social media so that everybody can understand and learn a little bit more about it is great.
Like a virus taking over a computer, the mind that writes the sentence, transgender man gives birth to a boy, has been completely corrupted by political pressure.
They actively include themselves in a political process. All of a sudden we see a homosexual. 15 years ago he did his dirty job and nobody cared. Now he makes it a political issue.
The law of the jungle, not the law of civilization.
When the legitimate bodies of power, the social structure collapse, it cannot function anymore.
Underestimated outcomes that have divided the world.
So it recognizes, in distinction to postmodernism, it recognizes that truth actually exists. It just elevates preferences over it. Truth exists, we kind of don't care as long as we get what we want. And there are those, the men of steel and the women of steel, who want to tell you that their voices can get you what you want. And they're the ones who say, we have the answers. But all of this is leading to a culture of confusion.
Law and order now also is pushed into the area where previously people settled their differences peacefully and legitimately. Now, we cannot solve our problems anymore. The society at large becomes more and more antagonistic between individuals, between groups of individuals, and the society at large.
It reminds me of the song that was so popular in the 80s when I was growing up, which dates me terribly, but a song called The Land of Confusion by the band Genesis. Remember what the words were? Oh, Superman, where are you now? When everything's gone wrong somehow, these men of steel, these men of power, are losing control by the hour. Does that not describe today? Could that song not be written yesterday?
So therefore, the population at large is looking for a savior. Some strong man, strong government, a leader, a savior is needed.
This nation was founded by men of many nations and backgrounds. It was founded on the principle that all men are created equal.
Equality, mind you. President Kennedy once said, we will make America to believe that people are born equal. Are people born equal? Is there any mentioning in the Bible? There is not a single word about equality. Just the opposite. You cannot legislate equality. If you want to be equal, you have to be equal. You have to deserve it. And yet we build our society on the principle of equality. We say people are equal. We know it is false. It's a lie. Material values are good, but it's not the prime function of human being. Because you have to live with something. Obviously, the design for our life is not to consume more deodorants. There must be something greater. If such a complicated instrument as human body was created, obviously there must be some higher purpose for that.
Do any one of you here think that what we're seeing has been detrimental to society as a whole?
Well, I think the loss, I mean, if you start to disagree about how to see truth and how to establish it and agree what it is, then I think you're in some danger.
We recognize truth but subordinate it to preference because we have sacrificed truth and clarity on the altar of human autonomy. I'm a law unto myself. I get to decide what's right and wrong for myself, and you get to do the same thing. The problem is when we collide. If I'm a law unto myself and you're a law unto yourself, because we're so autonomous, there's going to come a time when my set of values is going to collide with your set of values.
But truth is under a lot of attack.
Mika, you wanted to say something, please do.
Well, how do you define truth?
When we remove the boundaries, remove the fences, we lose that sense of purpose and we lose that true freedom.
Have you ever met a person who would sacrifice his life, freedom, for the truth like that? This is truth. I never met a person who said, this is truth and I'm ready to shoot me. To defend the truth.
The Bible is not against your freedom. It's very much in favor of it because it doesn't want you to result in chaos. And Jesus claims to be the true source of that freedom. And he makes a statement, it's pretty interesting. He says, freedom is inextricably intertwined with truth.
Something which is not material moves society and helps it to survive.
Now, the culture says that preferences over truth leads to autonomy. The Bible points out that autonomy over truth leads to chaos. But Jesus says that he is the embodiment of truth, and he sets you free.
And the other way around. The moment we turn into 2 by 2 is 4, and make it a guiding principle of our life, our existence, we die. Even though this is true, and this we cannot prove. We only can feel and have faith in it. So the answer to ideological subversion, strangely enough, is very simple. You simply have to have faith.
He doesn't tell you. See, Jesus is not a post-truth man. A post-truth man would tell you what you prefer to hear, not what's actually true. Jesus tells you what is true, not what you want to hear. He's not trying to